if you had the opportunity to create a trailer, tell me what that trailer would look like.
Rebecca and I have had a bit of an argument about this because she likes to see at least 2 points of restraint for a horse in a trailer. Can't argue with that really, but I'm beginning to think there really is no need for a breast bar or a door in front of a rear face horse in a proper trailer. It would only then be tethered by its lead line, now acting as a tether. Although you can leave the tether in place and just unsnap your lead line, put it on the horse's halter, and then just unsnap your lead line and walk away. The only other restraint, of course, would be the ramp closed. Jamco trailers, now in Canada, they used to be in the States, just uses a very simple, wide, soft band, so the horses feel even less restraint. There's also, although it's against the IATA rules for transporting horses, there's an airline with which I'm familiar that also uses just a very wide, soft band, which is something that Captain Carter found when he was shipping horses from the States to the Philippines for the Spanish-American War. He found that the horses being transported shipboard didn't fall down, didn't struggle during storms or high seas, provided he removed the solid breast bar and just replaced it with nice wide jute bags. And then the horses were fine because they had freedom of movement to lean as far forward as they wanted to and then rock back and use their heads as a balancing arm.
Taking that in, because we have historical information that you're aware of, plus we have new technical information. So what's that new trailer look like if it was designed to be better for the welfare and safety of horses?
The only thing I would add to the original David Holmes trailer is the partitions that have been designed by R.I.N. Tom Hotchkiss engineering firm in Australia, Ballarat, Australia. These partitions keep the horse in place in case of a rollover. Now, a lot of the trailers the 2 trailers that are on the market now, I find are way too elaborate. But if that's how people like it, they want to pay the extra expense for what, in my estimation, is an unneeded entry door, fine. At least the horse is traveling happy. But the ideal trailer would never, ever have, 2-horse trailer would never, ever have anybody behind the horse. The ideal trailer would have the windows a little bit lower on the side to encourage the horse to keep its head low. The European trailers with their high windows or their windows just ahead of the horse encourage the horse to try to go forward through that open light space. And time and again, Jim Green has had to rescue horses that have tried to go through the back entry man door to these European style trailers. And the ideal for that is to, the original trailer had windows a little high on the side, and the current one, also designed on the same concept, available in New Zealand, has the windows, in my estimation, a little too high on the side. They could be lowered to encourage the horse to keep his head lower. The windows on the latest reincarnation of the trailer that I saw in Australia has great big huge windows in the doors that close. Well, they're very encouraging for the horse to try to leap through them or go through them. Also, they allow following headlights in. And unless you have a solid barrier where the horse can drop his head to avoid those headlights, these windows are probably too large. And I wouldn't bother with them at that point. I wouldn't have them positioned there. although perhaps they're there to make it easier for the handler to check on what's going on inside. The original trailer, with which I had no problems with, had a tailgate that was first a platform on which you loaded the horse and turned it to reverse into its bay. And this has been done by a 14-year-old girl with a 17-hand hunter who could not be loaded in a standard trailer. The training is very simple. I have modified it because I know nothing about training horses. I just try to think, what is the horse trying to face? So all I have done is set up cavaletti in the configuration of the approach and reverse. And I have the kid, I had a 14-year-old girl, Elisa McLeod, load her own horse, which 2 horsemen had struggled to load all morning. And she loaded her own horse in my trailer, no problem. The horse arrived dry, cool, walked off just fine. But I just put the horse through the cavaletti configuration, and then I have the platform down as a ramp, and with me between the scary black pit and the hay bales at the end of the ramp, I lead the horse between the hay bales and me, and when he's quiet and stands on the ramp, then I lead him the other way with him. This time his side is exposed to the scary hole, but we still don't put him in. And then when he's quiet that way, then I put up the ramp as a platform. And if he's a large horse, I bring him on diagonally, turn, and reverse him into his bay. Nobody ever behind the horse. I don't want dogs behind the horse. I don't want anybody with a broom behind the horse. Nobody with a whip. And that's all there is to it.
Is there anything else on a technical aspect of the trailers you wanted to touch on?
Probably the most important technical aspect of it is 60% of the horse's weight is carried between the 2 axles. And this keeps your weight on the tongue very stable. So the horses aren't rocking back and forth and working on the tongue weight and hitch. Technically, there's very little to it. It's just the simplicity of keeping the horse balanced. And I have had to make an emergency stop to avoid hitting a dog when I had my horse aboard, and I thought, ooh, that's it. I've ruined this forever. And I halted and I raced to the back, and no, he had never missed chewing on his hay at all. It's perfectly fine. If you do have to make an emergency stop, they simply lean further away from the point of contact at the rear of the trailer. That is the rear that is closest to the hitch. That's in a backward facing position, provided they have the long rope tied to their halter. And the other thing is, I also had an extra ring in my trailer, which I could run the tethering rope through and tie it back, and it would be permanently tied back. And then if you had 2 horses that wanted to play bitey face or get really serious because of displaced behavior, if they were really, really nervous, you can run the end, the clip end through this other ring and tie it to the halters, and they can still raise and lower their head, but they can't reach each other to bite. You didn't need an elaborate partition between them. For technical things, I would approach Les Warrington. He's an internationally renowned engineer, redundancy engineer. He's taught in Saudi Arabia several times, Kazakhstan, California, Texas, goes all over the world teaching safety procedures. And he's a horseman too, and he was really struck with the trailer. He helped Rebecca and me with the 2015 non-commercial horse transport, The Need for Standards. It's about 228 pages, and it's available on the web at no charge to anybody who wants to investigate. And he went over it recently with us, and he said, nothing needs to be changed. He says it's still solid.
What advice do you have for me when I'm hauling a horse in a trailer?
Be very, very, very slow, very careful, even though you're driving the people behind you nuts. And just try to keep it as quiet as possible. One aspect which has been looked at but not resolved is the amount of fumes coming into trailers of all descriptions. I know Equus magazine, when they first started, were raising a colt, an Arabian colt, to race. I think it was in Chicago, and the colt arrived sick and could not race, and they attributed it to the fumes. They could not keep the fumes out of the trailer. Something like Flettner vents on the top. There is an Australian firm which has worked on air evacuation and refreshment for these transports, but I don't know how much further it's gotten. Nobody has tested to see if it really does anything.